Proof is in the pudding, and the pudding in this case is a football. Boom! Eat my goal! The goalie has got football pie all over his shirt.
No, I won't be afraid. Oh, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me.
Welcome to this episode of the Down the Pub podcast. You're going to have to excuse us if this isn't the most happiest of podcasts that we've ever done. Gary's hungover and we have to sit through an annihilation on Saturday. So how you doing, Gary?
I'm feeling a bit delicate. I had a lovely 3 days in Liverpool, or near Liverpool. Do you know Western Head by any chance?
I do not.
No, it's a really beautiful part of Nova Scotia. Like if you go through Liverpool, it's just around the corner from that. So I've had a nice 3 days with some friends there, and made the unfortunate decision to come back to the city for the game for a few hours on Saturday. But I'm sure we'll get on to how good that decision was soon.
So before we get into it, I did have because I'm an old cranky bastard, I did have a gripe, and you probably won't agree with me, but it's just me. So I feel like we have the march to the match, Block 108, the Privateers. They put a lot of energy and a lot of time and effort into building up the atmosphere in the stadium, and part of that is to, I guess, intimidate the other team as they're coming on and stuff like that, to kind of let them know that they're in a kind of cauldron of noise, if you would. So I still don't understand why we do silly things like at the game we had the anthems. Fair enough, everything goes quiet, do whatever bits and pieces they need to do for the coin toss, and then the guy, like the MC guy, like plays Stand By Me by Benny King right up until the kickoff, and I just feel like why are we wasting everybody's time and energy? It's not hockey, and I feel like that's where they get this from. It's like hockey and basketball, like because the fans aren't constantly making noise. There's kind of levels, you know what I mean, and they kind of fill stuff with music. But like the whole point of everybody doing the march to the match and building up for the game is to get the noise pumping. And once the national anthems are over, like turn it off and just allow the stadium just to take over. You know what I mean? But it was just really odd that right up until literally whoever kicked off, Stand By Me and I felt really ironic by the end of the game considering what had happened. So it's just a little pet peeve. I don't understand why they do that.
I think what they're trying is, like how Liverpool have You'll Never Walk Alone, Celtic do as well, don't they? A few clubs have that kind of big anthem just before the match starts where the whole crowd sings along. I think there's an attempt to try and have something like that going on at Wanderers grounds. And like, if you think about the tone of those songs, they're not like kind of drummy sort of beaty get up for this songs. They're more like collaborative sing-alongs to get everyone kind of singing from the same hymn sheet, so to speak. So I think that's what they're trying to do. But obviously something like that takes years and years and years and years to develop organically, doesn't it? So like if you're in the stadium, I think as a fan, I think the thinking process behind it is like, right, we want to do this. What is a song that has that sort of tone that everyone knows? And they thought like people would start singing along to it. So I think that's probably the plan. I know you said like, is it a hockey thing? But I actually think they're going for more of a football thing with like some of the European clubs having the club anthem. But yeah, it kind of it reflects. It looked quite bad when you lose, doesn't it?
But I find that like I know with Celtic and stuff like that, like they do like You'll Never Walk Alone, like, but there's always still a gap between the finish of that song and the kickoff, and the crowd erupts and there's a noise, there's a buildup of the sound, like the wall of sound that comes from the fans, and I just feel like like cutting the music off, like right as they're kicking the ball off, it just kind of kills the atmosphere. And I understand what you're saying with the anthem, and I know Derek like is probably it's something that he's into, and I get it, but it just seemed to me like that you're just wasting an awful lot of the fans' energy who've like, you know, like you can some poor bastard's been banging the drum over there for like an hour already, and then it's like he's been drowned out by Benny fucking King. So anyway, all right, let's get that's my rant over. Anyway, so let's
you having a good day, mate? You having a good day?
It was,
How you
honestly,
feeling?
it was literally the first thing I wrote on my little notepad, like my little my notes on my phone on Saturday. I was just like, what, for fuck's sakes, like just stop the fucking music. Like there doesn't need to be and like anyway, let's move on. So
I feel like I've stepped into the middle of a hurricane. I've just like walked into the middle of a
just
ripping around me.
I'm just trying to set the tone for the rest of the episode. So
I'm going to try and make this as light as possible.
So I feel like you hit the nail on the head. I think the last time when you said that, like, we really need a win in this game because it's gonna go from, you seen what happened to Calvary, like they drew their first 5 and then they beat Ottawa and everything's like hunky dory and it's all roses over in Calgary, whereas here we had the opposite where we got hammered and now it's kind of gone a bit doom and gloomy. And if you're seeing any of the comments and any of the group chats and all that kind of stuff, it was a bit of a dire day. But just to kind of get into it, so obviously we were missing Lorenzo. So formation wise, did we change anything or did we just like do a like for like change of bringing Mo Omar into Lorenzo's position?
I don't think it was exactly like for like, but kind of if we're using broad strokes, then yeah, Omar came in as the 6. And I think when we're talking about this game, like you have to think about what profile of 6 Omar is compared to the profile of 6 that Lorenzo is. So very simply put, I think Lorenzo is an on the ball 6 and Omar is an off the ball 6. So with someone like Omar, he's there to break up play and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Whereas when Lorenzo's there, he's there to kind of be the conductor of the orchestra, to dictate play and everything to go through him. So straight away, you pose a stylistic question to the rest of the team when you do have 2 contrasting 6s like that. And I think Lorenzo's superpower is that he allows the players around him to not be perfect. That's his superpower. That's what he brings to this team. You can be Aidan Daniels, you can be Rampy, you can be Riley Ferrazzo, and you can not be perfect. You can kind of drop a pass in, like make it a bit of a hospital ball. You can kind of play him into trouble. Not a problem. He can play in a phone box. He can turn out and play. Like, that's Lorenzo's superpower. Whereas Omar, he obviously isn't at the level of Lorenzo, and that's not his fault. But he also, as I said, is more of an off-the-ball 6, so you can't really rely on him to take it into those really tight spaces like you can with Lorenzo. So straight away, you're kind of, by having him there, you're leaning into a problem we already have, which is being very susceptible to central turnovers, because we've conceded quite a few goals this season after turning the ball over centrally, and the other team just kind of runs through and scores. So big miss Lorenzo. Like, Omar's a good player. I still think he's more of a centre back, and I think I've always said that. I think he's more of a centre back. But the team around him didn't adapt to. They were kind of playing the game like Lorenzo was still there and playing those passes into really risky areas like Lorenzo was still there, and Omar just doesn't have the feet for it. And I was looking at the stats after the game as well, and I think up to halftime he'd played like 25 passes or something, taken off at halftime. But let's just extrapolate that to the second half as well. He would have played about 50 passes. So we've gone from having Lorenzo, who plays like fucking 90 to 100 passes a game, to someone who was on track to play 50 passes a game. And that is such a wide gulf and such a wide contrast that it's very difficult to play your game when that person's missing. I'm sure we'll get into later whether that means we should be adapting how we play our game, or whether it's just a case of any team, you take out their best player and they suffer.
Yeah, I definitely felt that you can kind of feel people around who were like kind of on his case a little bit, Mo Omar. And I agree. Like, I think it was unfair just because like he wasn't Lorenzo. And as you said, like, I mean, Lorenzo is spraying 50, 60 yard passes. You know, he has the ability to bring others into the game. Whereas like Mo is more of a just like, as you said, like win the ball and just lay it off to somebody who can do that 50, 60 yard pass. And it just looked like nobody was coming to take the ball from him because that's what he wants. You know, he's got his head up, but it's not like he's not going to ping a pass in behind the defense for Fernandez to run onto. That's not his game. He's going to look, and we kind of went back to our usual thing of from last season of just sideways ball. You know, like it wasn't, and the only way that we tended to play forward was like dependent on our back line to hit and hope balls, and it just wasn't working. Like, I mean, like Christian Campagna is like one of our best defenders, and he just looked bang average because he was doing stuff that wasn't his game. So I just kind of wanted to ask you, like, you know, the way you kind of said there about our high turnover in midfield and most of our goals coming from that. Looking at the first goal especially, like we kind of obviously we fell asleep a little bit because we were expecting a whistle, but the defender coming towards the ball didn't seem to attack it as much. Like it seems like there was like a disconnect between the midfield and defense. Like, what do you think is causing that?
Firstly, to just address what you said about us looking like we were playing long balls, I think you were right, but I don't think that was the game plan at all. I think this is something we're going to get into as we talk about this game because of Patrice's quotes afterwards. This idea of the players being a bit intimidated, and I think there's two ways of approaching analysis of this game. There's looking at it from a tactical perspective, and there's looking at it from a mental perspective and an emotional perspective. And if we talk about why players started to play long balls, I think that falls into the latter camp. I think that's players who, as soon as we conceded a goal and as soon as things started to go a little bit wrong, really shrunk. Really shrunk. They were living that kind of like nightmare we all have where something's going wrong at work and everyone's just staring at you while this thing goes wrong. And I thought they kind of sacrificed their principles a little bit when that happened. They stopped trying to take risks, and like the evolution of this team at the minute is like where we eventually want to be is we want to be a team that has like high technical risk. And right now we're trying to be a team that has high technical security because you can't start taking technical risks until you're secure. And I think they kind of jumped over the security part of that at the start of the game and they took risks. It didn't work. We looked really all over the place, and then they shit themselves a little bit and kind of really reverted to the basics, which is hot potato football. Like Campagna gets it, for example, just to use him as an example. He's got two blokes closing him down. Instead of just kind of like relying on the patterns and the repetitions they've been working on throughout the week, he just thinks, oh, fuck, I don't like this. Whack it into the channel or whack it out of play. And that happened quite a lot. So I think that was a big part of it, just really not dealing with the pressure very well and the stress of the situation very well. And the first goal kind of came from that. The first goal, Omar lost it, didn't he, in the middle of the pitch, central turnover.
Yeah, I think it was a collision with Alou, I think, and then it kind of just sprung on from then. So,
and you saw the shape then. Like what I thought was happening was York were leaving just four players up the pitch pretty much as often as they can. Like York were playing a 4-2-3-1, and that 4 and that 2 were really defensive, and the 3 and the 1 were really attacking, because they know we build with 3 centre backs. They know we build with a 3, a 2, and then 5 players in the 5 attacking lanes. So they just left 4 up there and kept going. All right, if we like pinch your pocket in the middle of the pitch, we've got 4 on 3 straight away, or 5 and 4 straight away. The left back joined the attack a lot as well to create a 6-man, and all of those turnovers they're just killing us, and they've been killing us quite a lot this season as well. Like if you have your reference point in the middle of the pitch and they lose the ball, then you are so exposed. Aidan Daniels and Rampy, for all of their qualities, do not have good recovery pace. So again, if you lose it there, your 8s aren't catching up with their attackers. So suddenly you get like 5 on 4 situations, and that's going to kill you.
Yeah, it was kind of, there was like an awful lot of, it felt like unforced errors, but you know, just kind of like talking about what you said there about the panic mode. Like, do you think like it's a hangover from last year? Like, you know, because as soon as that first goal went in, obviously we were not playing well up until the first goal. We were all over the place, as you said, because we were trying different things, and then the goal goes in. But last year, because we'd been through so much, like, you know, we were beaten by Forge, and like we had like a lot of kind of defeats and draws and all that kind of stuff. Like, it kind of felt like something went around the stadium almost, where it was just like, oh fuck, here we go again. You know what I mean? Like, it's a kind of,
Mhm.
and I think it's just like we're all just like uh have emotional distress at this stage, and like maybe the players are kind of like felt that negative energy going around the ground, maybe.
Maybe, yeah, maybe, and it's weird you mentioned that Forge game because that was a year ago this weekend. I think that Forge
I think it
game
was
was
I
the
think it was
3-0 where it all kind of
I think it was the actual like year, like actual anniversary. It was the same day, same date.
cursed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of like the negativity, like at least where I am, it's I think maybe where I sit, like people are quite passive. Like there's a few guys down at the front who are quite vocal, but I can never really hear what they're shouting at the players. So I don't know if it's encouraging or disparaging. So I'm not sure, but it doesn't feel like a negative crowd, does it? Like I
No.
think like there's negative voices on Twitter or whatever when you read the stuff after the game, but I've never really got the sense in the ground that the fans are turning or close to turning. And I think even like behind the goal in the kitchen, I think the supporters group are more they're not like reactive, are they? They're like their chants and stuff, and their reaction. They're not really reacting to what is happening on the pitch. It's more kind of rehearsal or chants and things like that. So I don't think there's a risk of those turning either, because that's kind of supporter culture here. I've not really seen that. I think it's just yeah, like they're just embarrassed. I think honestly it comes down to that. They just feel a bit embarrassed. And I don't think you can say it's kind of a hangover from last year either, because who was on the pitch on Saturday that was in the team last year? Like Rampy and Fernandez were the only ones. So it's they're not carrying that emotional baggage. It's just yeah, in the moment doing your job badly in front of a lot of people is not a nice place to be, is it? For anyone, especially young men who are in their early 20s.
So somebody actually made a really good point. I'm not too sure who it was, that because like this is only our second game at home, and it's kind of a good thing to play away for the first few, if like, and get some good results and all that kind of stuff. But because most of these guys haven't actually played in front of a Wanderers crowd, and this is only their second one, that might be a disadvantage too. That you're going from, you know, playing away from home where you don't have people like shouting for you, cheering for you, or doing anything to you. Whereas, and then suddenly you've got 6,500 crazy fuckers banging drums, and you know what I mean. So maybe that could be a little bit, just a bit of stage fright or something. But it just, yeah, I'm just really worried, like, because of like that. I'm just afraid that the negativity is going to kick back in again after one really poor performance, and I think it's we kind of need to give them a chance, I think. But just looking at how it just, I think a lot of the problem is that, you know, it looked like a lack of effort. You know, like people weren't sprinting back, and like, to me, like I've seen a lot of the comments where that was like a lack of effort. Do you think there was a lack of effort?
No, I never do. I honestly, I think like there's not a professional footballer or athlete in the world where in front of 6,500 people don't make an effort. Like just naturally, instinctively, even if you deep down don't care, you still make an effort because you don't want to like embarrass yourself in front of everyone by not trying. So I don't think it's that. I think there was a million other things, but yeah, I don't think it was a lack of effort. Like they wouldn't have got this far in their career if they were susceptible to like not trying. So I think it was more just stage fright, like you said earlier, rather than a matter of effort.
I must say, I think that Martin Nash played it kind of really well, like the formation he set up, and having Austin Ricci, who's like just a complete and utter pain in the arse. Like he just buzzes around, and like him and Compagnie were getting into it like for a large portion of that first half, and he's kind of like a get in your face kind of player, and I think that really unsettled people too. I think like, and Di Rosario is kind of the same kind of guy too, where he's kind of like in your face kind of thing. So like, do you think it was more to do you think that we're not looking at how good a job York did, maybe? Like, because I thought they were set up perfectly for the team they were playing against.
Big time, yeah. So they've obviously had a week, like you mentioned last week, they've had a week in Halifax to prepare for this, and I thought they prepared excellently. Yeah, like I said, like we've talked about before, this idea of we kind of play with a 5-5, don't we? So we have like 5 players who are defensively minded and 5 players who work in the attack. And I think York kind of set up like a 6-4. So they had 6 defensively minded players and 4 attacking players. So they had the 4 defenders, they had the 2 defensive midfielders, Baldissimo and Sumaro or something. Brilliant player he is.
Yeah,
by
really
the way,
good, huh?
really big and physical.
Yep.
And then they just left the 4 up front. They had Ricci, Alou, Bahia, I don't know how to say his name, and Di Rosario. And they were just so energetic and such a nuisance, all of them. Like just like constantly pressing, like very, very aggressive with our centre backs. Punched in on Omar every time he got the ball. Because again, they knew if you turn Wanderers over centrally, you've got a good chance of scoring like within the 5 seconds after you create that turnover. So I thought that was really brave actually from Martin Nash to like say, we're just going to leave those 4 up there most of the match. Like they'll kind of drop in every now and then. Every now and then Baldissimo will punch out of his hole and kind of join them. The left back Faye, again, he'll join them occasionally, but really we're going to leave those 4 up there and just try and create turnovers so we have numerical advantages. And they did. So fair play to Martin Nash. Like I don't think of him as a particularly adventurous coach, but I thought that was quite an adventurous tweak he made, and it worked really well for them.
I think we should talk about the. No, I don't want to keep harping on about York, but this Alou guy that they picked up in the summer there, what a player, huh? You just feel like
I liked him a lot.
Just given a couple of more games, you can just feel he's gonna hit next level. Like the goal was fantastic.
Yeah, he looks really good. This is why I really thought they would. I mean, in our predictions, I thought they'd come second, didn't I? And I don't think that anymore, but I do think they're better than having 4 defeats already. Like, yeah, that Alou looks really good. I really like the centre midfielder as well. I don't know how to say his name though. Samaro or something.
Yeah, I think you're getting it right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's huge, isn't he? Really, really big. And he just bullied Rampy and Daniels. Like they couldn't, any duel, he would win the duel, no problem at all, because he's just a really big guy, big stride. Baldissimo's tidy. So they could get from their like defensive third to attacking third really, really quickly because they had players like him who could carry it. And we don't really have players with recovery pace to deal with players that carry it as well. Like, look at their first goal. Fine, they turn it over centrally, but that doesn't mean he should then have a free run from like close to the center circle to our 18-yard box without getting challenged. Like that happens because our 10s and our 8s don't have the recovery pace to get back and all of that stuff as well. So yeah.
I mean, I think he was really good, but the thing that caught my eye an awful lot too is that even like the second balls, like York were just always seemed to be forced to them. Like there was like a hunger there, and I think it's probably just because as well they're coming off quite a few games when they're like they should have won, and they kind of just like even like the game. I was talking to like Max Ferrari last week, and I even kind of like I mentioned to him about the Pacific game they played. They were like right in that game, and had they taken their chances, they would have probably came away with a point, but they kind of like missed their chances and then fell apart at the end. There's definitely the makings of a good team there, and I just like Max Ferrari came out with the blocks and had 2 big crunching tackles within the first 5 minutes, which kind of set the tone as well. And I just think that we were almost like shell shocked and weren't expecting them to be that much in our faces, maybe. But it was just really odd. So like coming into the second half, then obviously like we made the changes at halftime. We brought Mo Omar off. Like Teo like was I felt really bad for him because he wasn't getting any support whatsoever. And that guy, like I'd love to see like what his like how much he runs in a game, because like he runs his bollocks off and he puts it about a little bit. And you know, I think he's like he tried manfully to try and lead the line, but like nothing was sticking. Like he was barely getting any service. So he came off as well. So do you think that we made the right changes? And I know you're a real tactics guy. So did we change anything tactically at halftime? Like, did we change our formation? Did we move to it? Did we change the way that people moved to the pitch or anything like that?
I thought the first thing we were far more aggressive in pressing their defenders in the second half. Massimo Ferrin moved to kind of centre forward, bit false 90, but he was playing centrally. Kosi came on the left wing, and eventually Timoteo came on as well. So the principles were still there. Like, it was still kind of a 3-box 3 or 3-diamond 3. So that didn't change too much. But I think introducing Thomas Geraldo changed the way we looked quite a lot, because he came on absolutely fearless and not really giving a shit. Not the tidiest player ever, but very, very aggressive and very, very pressy. He runs about a lot. Probably could, I mean, I don't know the player well at all, but I imagine he can be a bit of a headless chicken sometimes. But saying that, I thought he was incredibly brave and took chances when the rest of the players were shitting themselves a bit and were too scared to take chances. So I respect that straight away, and I look forward to seeing him again. So we were a lot more aggressive second half, but in terms of shape and structure, and I say this without actually having watched the second half back since Saturday, so I don't remember it looking massively different, though. It was just kind of a change in mindset. And also they were trying to play a bit more first time, or at least only taking 2 touches. Whereas in the first half, again, a symptom of nervousness is you take too many touches because you're scared of making a mistake and playing a poor pass, which a lot of them were. So I thought we were taking like 1 touch too many a lot, which cuts off connections, which stops the patterns being able to be played. So second half, they seem to be trying to like punch it a bit quicker, 1-2 touch. So it was more that side of things that changed. However, when you concede a goal in the first move of the second half, and that kills any momentum and any kind of energy that would have been whipped up in the changing room. So you spend the next 15 minutes recovering from that, and then you can kind of like try and implement the changes. But it's difficult when you concede after 1 minute in the second half.
Yeah, it was funny. Like the announcer was still announcing the substitutions when that bloody goal went in. It was kind of crazy, but it was just another kind of symptom of us just being. We just kind of felt this. It looked like we were asleep, but I do agree with your point about is it Geraldo? Am I saying it? Is it Geraldo or Geraldo? I'm not too sure. How you? I don't want to mess it up, but anyway,
who knows? Ask Carlos.
Yes. But yeah, like I thought he was really good when he came on. He's a lot of energy. He was kind of buzzing around, and I think that's exactly what we needed. We needed somebody that was, and you could probably say they probably took their foot off the gas a little bit because you're 3-0 up. But I definitely think that he was a positive. I think Zach Fernandez was probably one of our better players again. You just always get a solid shift out of him. I think that when Ruby came on, he added a little bit of guile back there too. He just never seems to be phased by anything. I think he was the right player to bring on. I think maybe him coming on a little bit earlier might have helped, but I thought he was really good. So the second half, there was some kind of positives, but like overall in the game, like, was there any positives for you at all, Gar, or do you just like scrap it and just move on?
Just scrap it and move on. It was a really, really bad day at the office, wasn't it? Like, I don't think there's too many. There's a little, like I said, like Geraldo's a bit of a redeeming feature of that game. Like, we have Lorenzo coming back as well, and like this was always, this kind of thing was always going to happen this season, and this won't be the last time this happens either. Like, we will lose 3 or 4-0 at least 1 or 2 more times, because, like I said, if you're going to be as aggressive as York were, if we were even 80% at our level of passing and crispness of pass and execution of pass, then we could have played through them. Like fucking that. It was just a small moment in the game, but one of the most angry I've ever been at the Wanderers grounds was when it was 2-0. We were kind of coming back into it. we broke up one of their attacks. The ball falls to Christian Campagna. Zachary Fernandez is literally running through on goal alongside, I think Cologne was up there with him, and they had one defender back. It was the easiest pass in the world to play, and Campagna just fucking twatted it. And I don't know if he was trying to score from the halfway line or just like, and it was just like, what are you doing? Like, he literally could have slipped that Fernandez in, and he just hits it to their goalie, and it was like, oh my days! Like, have a word with yourself. Just give your head a wobble. Like moments like that. Like, for all of the conversations we can have about tactics and mentality, like when you've got so many players who are just way off it like that, then yeah, there's always going to be days like that. And I am, for now, cautiously happy to just put this in a little box and put it at the back of the closet and say, let's never talk about this again. Hopefully it's just kind of a one-off. And yeah, even though I just said there's going to be 2 or 3 more of them this season, but
Yeah, like, I guess the next time it'll happen is whenever Lorenzo picks up his next suspension. So
yeah,
just start counting the cards again. But that in the post match thing, Patrice had mentioned that like the Ferran miss might have changed things a little bit. Like you got to be putting that away, to be perfectly honest. And I know he was out for a couple of games, but that kind of goes in, and it kind of gives us a little bit of a boost, I guess, towards the end. And even like just seeing out the game of us like being on the front foot would just kind of send people home a little bit happy with a goal to kind of remember. And even that miss just kind of summed up the whole afternoon, I thought.
Yeah, it did. And I think this is one of those games where, and I think this has happened. This has always been the case with the club and the supporters, where people are really, really unwilling to ever point their finger at the players. I think people always point their fingers at kind of Derek or recruitment or whoever the coach is or whatever. And sometimes, and I think this is what happened on Saturday, the players have really bad days. Too many of them had a real off day. And and I think that needs to be acknowledged sometimes as well. And I think it's kind of a nice Canadian thing, because I think the personality of Canadians is to always punch upwards, to never punch downwards. And I think it feels a bit like punching downwards if you aim any sort of criticism at the players. And I do agree with that, actually, because most of them are like 21 years old. So you don't want to be a dick and just like say that 21-year-old was shit at his job, because when I was 21, I was shit at my job, and it just happens. You have days like that, don't you?
Yeah.
But I think this game was a little bit tactical, very much emotional and stage fright based, and maybe like 25-30% just individuals being way off it. So I think you asked me what the positives were, and I just went on a weird rant about that. So yeah, not many.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the positives for me, and it might sound a bit funny, but I think that Jan having a go at Lockery about he was trying to shepherd the ball out and made a balls of it, and like the two of them were having like a right old ding dong. And to me, like, it needed that. It needed somebody to fucking call somebody out and say this isn't fucking good enough. And I think that was the kind of lackadaisical way we were playing, is that like the shepherding out of that ball was terrible. And I just think that to me it was like, all right, somebody's willing to fucking have a go at somebody else here and say like this isn't fucking good enough. And I think that was for me just a tiny little positive, that we have somebody that's willing to stand up in the team and give a bollocking when it needs to be done. So
it's accountability, isn't it?
Yeah, and I feel like like for Patrice, and Jordan and Jed and the coaching team and Jan, it's difficult because the only thing you can ever say is we can give them all the training in the world, all the tactics, all the formations, but at the end of the day we can't play the game for them. And it is kind of a cliche, and Patrice kind of said it after, but it's 100% correct. I think you can prepare people, all the video tech you want and all that kind of stuff, but if you show up and you're just not on your game, like this will happen. So,
sorry, man. The recruiting aspect of this is really interesting, I think, in this league, because like if you're recruiting for a Premier League team, whoever you're recruiting, you know exactly how they deal with every single kind of pressure point in the game. Whereas with our league, if you're recruiting NCAA players or League One Ontario players or players from any kind of level of the youth system in Canada, you know all about them technically and how good they are as players, but you have no idea how they deal with playing in front of crowds. It's impossible to know because they never really have had to. And I felt like, yeah, we saw a few players who didn't deal with that too well, but I don't know how you address that in the recruitment process if you can never see them in that environment. It's interesting, and it's a difficult thing to look at.
It's impossible, but I think, you know, looking at like last year, like when Mo Omar came in, he kind of looked a little bit deer in the headlights with the whole thing and was kind of a little bit looked overwhelmed. But by the end of the season, he was fine, probably one of our better players, to be honest. So I think it's just a matter of time, you know, and it's difficult. There's no way for you to scout for it, so you kind of have to just prepare people for it. And like having those friendly games, I think at Dal was a good idea for that. That they got to kind of see a mini version of what it was like to play. But it is, and just having this is only their second game at home, you kind of have to go, all right, let's give them the benefit of the doubt this time. But yeah, we can't have too many more of these, or it's going to be a long fucking summer. So
it's difficult as well, mate. Like specifically for Wanderers players, because we're part of the problem here. Like out of every club in the league, there is by far the most kind of dialogue and conversation around the club, because we have such an active fan base. We have multiple bloggers. We've got multiple podcasts, and like if you're a player, I would hope they don't read any of it or listen to any of it. Like, I really hope they don't, because how can you perform when you know there's this conversation? I mean, the alternative is no one blogs and no one podcasts, which is not good. Like, it's a good thing that these things exist, because content kind of creates interests and drives ticket sales and blah, blah. But like, if you're a player, they like, stay away from the noise. So when you walk on that pitch in front of 6,500 people, you're not thinking, oh God, that guy that slagged me off on Twitter, he might be in the crowd, or that fucking dickhead Irish podcaster who said I wasn't trying might be watching. Like, just to block all that shit out.
Yeah, that's that never listen to me. So yeah, I have no idea what I'm talking about. But yeah, let's I don't even think it's worthy of us saying for a man to match in this one. I think the
Lorenzo.
Yeah, Jesus, like the poor people who stayed until the very end, till the 90th minute. Fair play to them. Yeah, so it's been. Let's hope that the next one, next one's against Pacific, that we're talking about something a little bit more happy. Just on that Pacific game, I saw that Mr. Basket played his first game for Pacific there on the weekend. He did pretty well, so it's going to be interesting to see if he starts against us next weekend, and hopefully we'll put 4 or 5 past him just to go, there you go, pal.
There you go, mate. I think Big Jan Michael's going to walk. Jan Michael's going to walk on the pitch and give him a stone cold stunner at some point. That's for calling me a nasty name.
I really hope that the cameras are there to catch that moment. All right, man.
And then the ref takes off his mask, and it's Christian Oxner, and he gives him a rock bottom.
Oh my god! Oh, and then it's like just like a death cage comes down, like the WWE or something. And it's like a fight till the end. Oh dear. All right, man. I thank you for giving me a laugh at the end of what it was a fucking terrible game that you. So enjoy your hangover.
Thank you. Let's never speak of any of this again. It's done. See you later, mate.
Folks, please. Right foot, please. Time to drink up, folks. Get out. Out to fuck.